In the heart of an old, forgotten town stood a dilapidated mansion known to the locals as the Hawthorne House. The mansion had long been abandoned, its once grandiose halls now echoes of a sinister past. Children whispered stories of ghosts and restless spirits that roamed its decaying rooms, but few dared to venture close enough to see if the tales were true. Evelyn had heard the stories all her life. A skeptical journalist by trade, she decided to investigate the mansion for her next article. Armed with her camera and notebook, she made her way to Hawthorne House as the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows across the landscape. As she stepped inside, the air grew cold, and an overwhelming sense of unease settled over her. Dust-covered furniture and cobwebs adorned the grand foyer, and the silence was almost deafening. Evelyn began to explore, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. In the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow that didn't quite match the shape of anything in the room. It moved independently, darting behind her every time she turned. Her heart pounded as she tried to rationalize what she was seeing. She snapped a photo, hoping to capture whatever it was. The shadow seemed to grow bolder, always just out of reach, lurking in the corners of every room she entered. The more she chased it, the more it seemed to lead her deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. Whispers filled the air, words she couldn't quite make out, as if the walls themselves were trying to warn her. Evelyn's determination turned to dread as she realized the shadow was no ordinary trick of the light. It was following her, hunting her. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the shadow took on a more defined form, tall, gaunt, with glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. She ran, desperate to find her way out, but the mansion seemed to twist and turn, every corridor leading her back to the shadow. It was as if the house itself was alive, conspiring with the malevolent entity to trap her within its walls. In a final, frantic attempt to escape, Evelyn burst into what appeared to be an old study. The shadow was right behind her, its presence almost tangible. She slammed the door shut and pressed her back against it, panting heavily. The whispers were deafening now, a cacophony of voices telling her to leave, to get out before it was too late. But the shadow was relentless. It seeped through the cracks around the door, enveloping the room in darkness. Evelyn screamed as it closed in, her flashlight flickering and dying in the oppressive gloom. The next morning, a local search party found Evelyn's camera outside the mansion, its last photo a blurry, distorted image of a dark figure with glowing eyes. The Hawthorne house stood silent and empty, its secrets once again hidden in the shadows. The town added another story to their whispers, and the shadow continued its pursuit, waiting for the next curious soul to wander into its domain. Weeks turned into months, and Evelyn's disappearance became a cautionary tale in the small town. Despite the warnings, the allure of the Hawthorne house only grew. Paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and the occasional daredevil teenager were drawn to the mansion, hoping to capture evidence of its haunted reputation. Among them was Michael, a seasoned paranormal investigator known for his fearless approach to the supernatural. He had heard about Evelyn's fate and was determined to uncover the truth behind the shadow that stalked her. Armed with the latest ghost hunting equipment, Michael ventured into the mansion on a cold, moonlit night. As he stepped through the creaking front door, the temperature dropped noticeably. Michael felt a chill run down his spine but pressed on, setting up cameras and sensors in the grand foyer. The house seemed to watch him with a malevolent patience. Hours passed with little activity, until Michael reviewed the footage. There, in the corner of each frame, was the shadow. It moved closer with each passing minute, its form more defined, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Michael's pulse quickened as he realized he was not alone. The shadow began to play its game, leading Michael through the winding corridors and hidden rooms. The whispers returned, filling his ears with unintelligible murmurs, growing louder as the shadow drew nearer. Michael, ever the skeptic, tried to rationalize the phenomena, but the fear was unmistakable. In one of the mansion's forgotten rooms, Michael discovered Evelyn's notebook. Her last entry described the shadow in chilling detail, her fear palpable in every word. As he read, the temperature plummeted, and the whispers became a roar. The shadow was upon him. Desperately, Michael tried to communicate with the entity, asking it what it wanted. To his horror, the shadow responded. It was a restless spirit, bound to the mansion by a tragic past. Once a resident of Hawthorne House, it had been wronged, its life cut short by betrayal and murder. Its soul could not rest, and it sought to draw others into its torment. Michael, armed with this new knowledge, vowed to help the spirit find peace. He began researching the mansion's history, uncovering a tale of deceit and vengeance. The shadow's true name was revealed: Jonathan Hawthorne, the original owner, who had been murdered by his own brother in a bid for the family fortune. Michael returned to the mansion, performing a ritual to release Jonathan's spirit. As he chanted, the shadow grew agitated, swirling around him in a frenzy. The whispers reached a fever pitch, and then, suddenly, there was silence. The shadow dissipated, leaving behind a sense of calm. Michael felt a wave of relief wash over him as the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Jonathan's spirit had been freed, and the mansion seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Michael left the Hawthorne house, never to return. The mansion stood quiet and still, its dark past finally laid to rest. But the town knew better than to let their guard down. The Hawthorne house had seen too much to ever be truly at peace. And somewhere, deep within its walls, the shadows waited, always ready to pursue the next curious soul who dared to enter.